Every day, we make choices, simple, small actions that ripple through our lives. Reheating food is one of them. It seems so ordinary, doesn't it? Just a quick step to save time or avoid waste. But what if I told you that some foods, when reheated, could quietly harm your body? And others, they must be reheated to protect you from hidden dangers. For seniors, this knowledge isn't just helpful, it's essential. Your health is sacred, and every bite you take shapes the energy you carry into the world. There's a particular food, one you probably ate this very week, perhaps even this morning, that if you reheat it incorrectly, especially in that quick, often uneven way, you could be rolling out the welcome mat for some very unwelcome microscopic guests into your system. And then, on the flip side, there's another common dish, a comfort food for many, that if you don't reheat it thoroughly, with diligence and care, you're not only missing out on its full, glorious flavor, but more importantly, you're potentially compromising its safety. The answers, my friends, might surprise you. They might even cause you to pause and rethink some long-held kitchen practices. And I encourage that pause, that moment of reflection. Stay with me, I implore you, because the last piece of advice I'll share today, well, let's just say it's the golden key. It's the insight that ties all of this together, and it's arguably the most crucial piece of the puzzle for unlocking so much more than just food safety. It touches upon the very essence of how we nurture ourselves in these experienced, wise years. You won't want to miss a single word of this. This isn't just about dietary rules, it's about cultivating a deeper respect for our bodies, for the incredible journey they've taken us on, especially now when they deserve our utmost tenderness and understanding. Now, why this intense focus on reheating, you might ask? Why dedicate our precious time together to this seemingly mundane kitchen task, especially for us, the seniors, the elders, those of us who have gathered the rich tapestry of wisdom that only time can weave? The answer is simple, yet profound. Our bodies, these magnificent, resilient vessels that have carried us through decades of life's adventures, change with time. They are not the same as they were at 20 or 30 or even 50. Think of a beautiful ancient tree, one that has weathered countless storms and basked in countless suns. It stands strong, its roots run deep, its branches reach towards the heavens, a testament to endurance. But it also requires a different kind of care than a young, spry sapling. It's more sensitive to shifts in the environment. Its bark may be a little more fragile, its ability to draw nutrients perhaps a little less vigorous than in its youth. Our digestive systems, those intricate pathways that transform food into life force, and our immune responses, our body's loyal guardians, they become more discerning, more sensitive, more easily perturbed by things they might have once handled with effortless ease. What a younger person, with their more robust and perhaps less taxed system, might shrug off after eating a hastily reheated meal, a little rumble in the tummy, a fleeting moment of indigestion, we in our golden years might feel much more acutely. Our internal harmony, that delicate balance that dictates our daily comfort and energy, can be more easily disturbed. Bacteria, my dear friends, are tiny, often invisible entities, but they can wield a mighty impact, especially on a system that's already managing the natural processes of aging. When food is cooked, then cooled, and then reheated, it inevitably passes through what food scientists call the danger zone. This is that specific temperature range, typically between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or 4 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius, where bacteria, those opportunistic little beings, love to multiply. They find it a most hospitable climate for throwing a party, so to speak, and proliferating. For some foods, this journey through the danger zone, especially if it's slow or repeated, is far riskier than for others. But please do not misunderstand me. This conversation is not about instilling fear. Oh no, not at all. Fear constricts, it paralyzes. This is about empowerment. This is about illumination. It's about understanding the subtle nature of things, the flow of energy within our food, the microscopic life that coexists with it, so we can make conscious, informed choices. Choices that honor our health, that keep our inner temple, our body clean, strong, and vibrant. Food is life. It is prana. It is kai. And how we treat our food, even the humble leftovers from yesterday's meal, is a direct reflection of how we treat ourselves, how we value our own well-being. Think of it in this way: you wouldn't venture out into a biting, chilly wind wearing a coat that is still damp from the rain, would you? Of course not. You'd ensure it's properly dried, perhaps warmed by the hearth, ready to provide you with its full measure of protection and comfort. It's precisely the same principle with our food, especially when we are reheating it. We want to ensure it's not just palatable, not just warmed through, but truly safe, truly nourishing, truly life-affirming when we consume it a second time. This isn't about adding unnecessary complications to our lives. Heaven knows life can present enough complexities on its own. Instead, this is about weaving a thread of mindful care, a simple layer of attention that pays us back tenfold in how we feel, day in and day out. The focused energy, the conscious intention we put into preparing and reheating our food thoughtfully is energy that returns to us in the form of vitality, comfort, and peace of mind. Our bodies are, without a doubt, our most precious vessels in this earthly existence. They have carried our spirits, our dreams, our sorrows, and our joys through so many seasons of life. They have worked tirelessly, often without complaint. Don't they then deserve the utmost care, the most gentle consideration in every single morsel we offer them? This fundamental understanding, this deep-seated respect, is the foundation upon which all our food choices should rest, especially when it comes to the sometimes tricky, often underestimated business of reheating. It's a small act with potentially large consequences for our daily experience of health. Alright, let us now delve into our first specific food item, a true staple in so many kitchens across the globe, a wonderfully versatile and readily available source of high-quality protein, the humble yet magnificent egg. We encounter eggs in so many forms, don't we? Scrambled for a quick breakfast, boiled for a convenient snack, or to slice into salads, fried to accompany toast, whisked into fluffy omelets filled with our favorite vegetables, or baked into savory quiches and custards. We love our eggs, and for very good reason. They are nutritional powerhouses, relatively inexpensive, and can be transformed into a myriad of delightful dishes. But here, my friends, is where we must exercise great caution, a particular mindfulness. Cooked eggs or dishes where cooked egg is a primary and significant ingredient are generally not good candidates for reheating, especially, and I must emphasize this, in a microwave oven. Why, you ask? What is the hidden concern with this seemingly innocent food? The primary issue revolves around bacteria and the changes in protein structure. When cooked eggs are allowed to sit, particularly if they haven't been cooled down rapidly and stored with meticulous care in the refrigerator, they can become a rather welcoming environment for certain types of bacteria. One of the most notorious of these is Salmonella, a bacterium well known for causing foodborne illness, which can be particularly harsh on older digestive systems. Now, when you initially cook eggs, whether you're scrambling, boiling, or frying them, you typically heat them thoroughly enough to neutralize these little troublemakers, rendering them harmless. The heat does its cleansing work. However, the reheating process, especially a quick, often uneven, zap in the microwave, presents a different scenario. Microwave heating is notoriously inconsistent. Some parts of the food can become scalding hot, while other areas, often in the center or thicker portions, may remain merely lukewarm. And those lukewarm pockets, my friends, that's precisely the temperature range where any surviving bacteria can persist or even be jolted back into activity and begin to multiply once more. It's like giving them a second chance to cause mischief. Furthermore, the delicate protein structure in eggs undergoes significant changes when cooked. Reheating them, particularly at high temperatures or for an extended duration, can denature these proteins further. This isn't just a matter of culinary science, it has real-world implications for digestibility and even safety. Sometimes this further denaturation can create compounds that can be quite upsetting to our digestive systems, leading to discomfort, gas, or bloating. You might also notice a distinct and unpleasant change in texture. The egg becomes rubbery tough, almost like chewing on a piece of vulcanized rubber. A once fluffy omelette can transform into a sad, dense, and watery shadow of its former self. You might also detect a slightly off smell or taste, a subtle metallic or sulfurous note. These are your senses, your body's innate wisdom, sending you clear signals that something isn't quite right, that the food is no longer in its optimal state. It is so important to listen to these subtle cues. They are wise and ancient protectors. Think about a beautiful, golden, fluffy omelette, perhaps studded with fresh herbs and cheese, a joy to behold and eat. If you try to microwave the leftover portion the next day, what happens? It often shrinks, becomes tough, exudes water, and frankly, becomes quite unappetizing. That dramatic change in texture is a visible sign of the structural changes happening within the proteins of the egg. Or consider hard-boiled eggs. Reheating a whole, cooked hard-boiled egg, especially in the microwave, can sometimes cause steam to build up inside, potentially leading to an egg-splosion, a messy and startling event. More commonly, it will release a strong sulfurous smell that's quite unpleasant, and again, the texture of both the white and the yolk suffers immensely, becoming leathery and dry. So, what is the wise and health-conscious approach to dealing with leftover cooked eggs? My best and most earnest advice is to learn to enjoy them cold, or to incorporate them into dishes that are served cold. A leftover hard-boiled egg, for instance, is perfectly delightful sliced into a fresh green salad, or chopped to make a classic egg salad for a sandwich on good, wholesome whole grain bread. Leftover scrambled eggs or pieces of an omelette can be finely chopped and mixed into a cold pasta salad, a potato salad, or even a cold rice salad, adding a protein boost and interesting texture. Think of ways to creatively repurpose them without applying more heat. This way, you continue to benefit from their excellent protein and nutrient content without incurring the risks associated with reheating or suffering the inevitable compromise in taste and texture. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel you absolutely must warm an egg-based dish, such as a slice of a sturdy frittata or a well-set quiche, which often contain other ingredients that bind them, then the method of reheating is paramount. Avoid the microwave if at all possible. Instead, opt for a very gentle warming in a conventional oven, set to a low temperature, perhaps around 250-300 degrees F, 120-150 degrees C. Place the item in an oven-safe dish, perhaps loosely covered with foil to prevent drying, and heat it only until it is just warmed through. The goal is not to recook it, but to take the chill off. Even then, be incredibly mindful. You must ensure it's heated evenly and thoroughly to a safe internal temperature, which for any potentially hazardous food is at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 degrees Celsius. However, it's crucial to recognize that even with this careful oven reheating, the texture and overall quality will likely never be as good as when it was freshly cooked. For simple cooked eggs like scrambled, fried, or poached, it is almost always best to make the small effort to cook them fresh each time you desire them. The few extra minutes it takes is a very small price to pay for optimal safety, digestibility, and sensory enjoyment. Remember, our digestive systems, particularly as we age, appreciate gentleness, kindness, and food that is easy to process. Reheated eggs, due to these changes in protein and potential for bacterial issues, can sometimes present a bit of a challenge for them. So for this wonderfully versatile food, fresh is undoubtedly best. If not fresh, then cold is a safe and often delicious second option. Let us treat the noble egg with the respect it deserves, enjoying it in ways that best serve our health and pleasure. Now that we've cracked the code on eggs and hopefully illuminated why they are best enjoyed fresh or cold after initial cooking, are you perhaps wondering what other seemingly innocent leftover lurking in your refrigerator could be causing you silent trouble? The next food we're going to discuss is a true leafy green powerhouse, absolutely packed to the brim with essential nutrients when it's fresh. But the act of reheating it can, under certain circumstances, transform those beneficial nutrients into something far less friendly, something we'd rather avoid. This is a subtle but important distinction. So please stay with me, because understanding this next point is genuinely crucial for your daily health and for maximizing the goodness you get from your greens. Let us now turn our careful attention to the vibrant green goodness of vegetables like spinach, kale, celery, lettuce, arugula, beet greens, and other nitrate-rich leafy vegetables. These are the undisputed champions of nutrition when consumed fresh or after their initial cooking, brimming with an incredible array of vitamins like A, C, and K, essential minerals such as iron and calcium, fiber, and those wonderful phytonutrients and antioxidants that support our overall well-being and protect our cells. We enjoy them raw in salads, we steam them lightly to retain their color and crispness, we saute them with a touch of garlic and olive oil, we blend them into healthful smoothies, and we add them generously to our soups, stews, and casseroles. And this is excellent. Their contribution to a healthy diet is immense. However, a note of caution, falls upon these otherwise stellar greens when it comes to the specific act of reheating them after they have been cooked. The concern here, as I briefly mentioned, lies primarily with compounds called nitrates. Leafy green vegetables naturally accumulate nitrates from the soil in which they grow. This is a normal part of their biology. In their original form, these nitrates are generally harmless. In fact, our bodies can convert some nitrates into nitric oxide, a beneficial compound that plays a role in blood vessel dilation and cardiovascular health. But under certain conditions, specifically during the process of cooking, then cooling, then storing, and then subsequently reheating, these nitrates can be converted by the action of certain bacteria, which may be naturally present or introduced during handling, or even by enzymes inherent within the greens themselves, into different compounds called nitrites. And nitrites, my dear friends, particularly when heated again in the presence of proteins, can become problematic. When nitrites are heated, especially to high temperatures, and particularly if they are in a dish that also contains amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, which are of course present in many foods often served alongside or mixed with greens like meat, fish, cheese or beans, they can undergo a chemical reaction to form nitrosamines. And nitrosamines are compounds that we genuinely want to minimize our exposure to, as scientific research has linked them to an increased risk of certain health issues over the long term. Now, this is not intended to cause undue alarm or to suggest that you must immediately banish all leftover greens. Rather, it is to foster a deeper awareness, a more informed approach to how we handle these foods. Imagine a lovely, creamy spinach dish, perhaps made with a bit of milk or cheese, or a hearty lentil soup brimming with chopped kale. If you have leftovers of such a dish, and you then reheat that soup or that spinach dish the next day, or even 2 days later, the potential for this nitrate to nitrite to nitrosamine conversion increases. The longer the cooked greens sit, and the more times the dish is cooled down and then reheated, the riskier it can potentially become. Each heating cycle can be an opportunity for these transformations. The microwave oven, once again, with its characteristic uneven heating patterns, can inadvertently exacerbate this issue. Some parts of the dish containing the greens might get overheated, potentially accelerating the formation of these undesirable nitrosamine compounds, while other parts may remain relatively cool, perhaps still within that danger zone where bacteria can thrive and continue their work of converting nitrates to nitrites. It's a complex interplay of temperature and chemistry. So, what is the wise and prudent path forward when it comes to cooked leafy greens? Cook what you'll eat, or close to it. If possible, try to prepare an amount of these leafy greens, whether spinach, kale, chard, or others that you and your household can reasonably consume in one sitting. Freshly cooked is always the gold standard for both nutrient retention and safety regarding this specific issue. Enjoy them cold or at room temperature. If you do have leftover cooked spinach, wilted kale from a warm salad, or other cooked greens, perhaps from a side dish, it's generally safer and often quite palatable to eat them cold or at room temperature, rather than reheating them. Add them to a new, fresh salad. Stir them into a cold grain dish like quinoa or couscous. Blend them into a green smoothie if the original preparation was simple, like steamed greens. A cold spinach dip, for example, is perfectly fine. If you must include them in a larger dish that will be reheated like a big pot of stew or a casserole that you intend to eat over several days, a smarter strategy is to add the fresh leafy greens towards the very end of the reheating process of the main dish. For example, if you're reheating a portion of stew, bring the stew to a safe temperature first, and then stir in your fresh spinach or kale, allowing it to wilt from the residual heat of the stew just before serving. This way, you are not repeatedly reheating greens that have been cooked and stored within the dish for a long period. Be mindful of dishes with a high concentration of cooked greens. Dishes where cooked greens are a very dominant ingredient, like creamed spinach or a dense spinach bake, are the ones to be most cautious about reheating multiple times. This isn't to say you can never, ever have leftover soup that contains some greens, but it is about being mindful, especially of the quantity of greens and the number of reheating cycles. If you've made a very large pot of minestrone soup packed with spinach and you plan to eat it over several days, perhaps it's better to store the soup base separately, if practical, and add fresh spinach each time you reheat a portion. Or if you are reheating the entire dish containing the cooked greens, ensure it's done thoroughly and quickly to a safe temperature and then consumed promptly. Try to avoid multiple reheating cycles for the same batch of greens-laden food. The delicate chemical nature of these valuable greens means they are truly at their nutritional best and safest from this particular conversion perspective when enjoyed fresh or very close to their initial preparation. By understanding this simple principle of chemistry and food science, we can continue to reap the immense nutritional gifts these vegetables offer without inadvertently introducing elements that do not serve our health. It's a small adjustment in our kitchen habits perhaps, but it can lead to a significant gain in peace of mind and contribute positively to our long-term well-being. It's another layer of gentle care we can extend to ourselves. We've navigated the potential pitfalls with eggs and leafy greens, understanding why they often say no thank you to being reheated. But knowledge, as we know, is a multifaceted gem. Just as vital as knowing what not to do is knowing with clarity and confidence what you must do. Are you ready to shift our focus and discover the foods that not only tolerate but absolutely demand thorough and proper reheating for your safety and your continued enjoyment? The first one on this must reheat list is a comforting classic, a friend on chilly evenings, a staple in many households, but it truly shows its friendship only if handled with the correct reheating wisdom. Don't go anywhere, because this next part of our journey is absolutely vital for those cozy meals and for keeping your digestive system happy and healthy. Now we come to another very common and often beloved staple in kitchens around the world, the wonderfully versatile and deeply comforting potato. Whether baked until fluffy, mashed until creamy, roasted to golden perfection, boiled for salads, or fried into crispy delights, the potato finds its way into so many of our meals, providing sustenance, satisfaction, and a canvas for countless flavors. And because we make them in so many ways, and they are often served in generous portions, there are frequently leftovers. A half-eaten baked potato from last night's dinner, a scoop of mashed potatoes, some roasted potato wedges from Sunday's family meal. What could possibly be the harm in simply warming them up again? Well, my friends, the potato itself, in its starchy essence, isn't inherently the problem when it comes to reheating. The significant issue, the potential danger, arises primarily from how it's stored after its initial cooking, especially if it's left to cool down and then sit at room temperature for too long. Under certain conditions, cooked potatoes can become a surprisingly hospitable breeding ground for a rather nasty and potent bacterium called Clostridium botulinum. This is the microscopic culprit responsible for botulism, which, while rare, is a very serious, potentially life-threatening illness that affects the nervous system. We must treat this risk with the utmost respect. Here's how the scenario unfolds. Clostridium botulinum exists in the environment, often as hardy spores found in soil. These spores can easily find their way onto the surface of potatoes. Normal cooking, like baking or boiling, will usually kill the active bacteria, but it may not be sufficient to destroy all the heat-resistant spores. If these cooked potatoes, especially if they are wrapped tightly in aluminum foil, which creates an anaerobic or oxygen-free environment that Clostridium botulinum absolutely loves to thrive in, are then left to cool down slowly at room temperature for an extended period, let's say for more than 2 hours, and certainly if left out overnight, these surviving spores can germinate. Once they germinate, they transform back into active bacteria, and these active bacteria can begin to produce the dangerous botulinum toxin. Now, here is the absolutely crucial point. Reheating the potato later on, even to a very high temperature, might kill the Clostridium botulinum bacteria themselves, and this is a very big, but it will not necessarily destroy the heat-stable toxins that they may have already produced during that improper cooling and storage period. These toxins are what cause the illness, and they are much more resilient to heat than the bacteria themselves. This is why the cooling and storage process for cooked potatoes is absolutely paramount. It is the critical window where safety is either maintained or compromised. If you cook potatoes, bake them, boil them, roast them, and you find you have leftovers, they must be cooled down relatively quickly and then refrigerated promptly. Do not, under any circumstances, leave that foil-wrapped baked potato or that pot of boiled potatoes sitting on the kitchen counter for hours, or worse, overnight, with the intention of reheating it for lunch or dinner the next day. That is precisely where the risk of botulism toxin formation significantly increases. The ideal is to get cooked potatoes into the refrigerator, loosely covered, or in a breathable container once the foil is removed from baked potatoes, within 2 hours of them finishing cooking.